Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today I'm really excited to take a look at this knife, the Artisan Cutlery Megahawk. This is a pretty cool knife, so let's get right into it. We'll start off with our blade length measurements. Bring out the old broken ruler. And you can see here we're coming in at 3.6 inches, so definitely what I would consider to be a full-size knife. Let's do our comparisons. Here's the Rat 2, the Rat 1, pivots lined up, there we go. And next, let's go ahead and compare against PM2 and the Bug Out. Nice, nice, nice. And let's compare against Elementum and the Praxis. There we go. And lastly, let's go ahead and compare against another big Artisan Cutlery Wharncliffe sheep's foot. That's the Apache, and I actually have an Artisan in my pocket today, the Sirius, a much newer Artisan. Alright, so what are we looking at in terms of materials here? So we have a D2 Wharncliffe blade. I mean, I think I can pretty safely and uncontroversially call this a Wharncliffe. If anyone wants to argue with me, you can in the comments below. We have aluminum scales over steel liners, steel pocket clip, and G10 inserts. This is an older Artisan Cutlery because you guys know how this channel works. We show up late to everything. So before we go and get into the cutting footage, actually, I want to make a correctment. Please forget you heard that. I have a correction to make. I say in the cutting footage that this measured in at 18 thousandths behind the edge. That's wrong. I was thinking about a different knife that I measured. This one measures in between 22 and 24 thousandths behind the edge. So keep that in mind when you're watching the cutting footage. This knife is more of a cutter than a slicer. We also do have pretty thick blade stock. And so, yeah, keep that in mind. You will see that come into play when we get to the pool noodle cut. But how about instead of me talking about it, you just go over and watch it. Alrighty, so let's talk about the Artisan Cutlery Megahawk. Oh, I forgot the name there for a second. Really, really cool knife. First off, let's talk about the action. On the close, it's very, very nice. The opening action with the flipper tab is not the most satisfying. The flipper is way, way lower than the pivot, and it works, but it's kind of a slow flip. But it is reliable. I mean, you can fail it pretty easy, but if you go to deploy it, it will deploy reliably. On the close, very, very smooth on the close. And my hat's casting a shadow. I'm a man of mystery. You actually can, if you get your finger down there on the blade, you can reverse flick the blade out, which is pretty cool. But action is okay. It's a usable action. The ergonomics are really, really nice. This knife it fits my hand so well. I like the shape that they have going on here. It's one of those neutral but not neutral grips. Works really, really nicely. Big fan of that. So good grip, very solid, very hand-filling, good grip. How does it carry? It's a big knife and it's pretty heavy, so that's going to bother some people. I don't mind it too much personally. What's interesting about the carry is we have right hand tip up, or we have a tip spot where you can put the clip for tip down carry. I carry it tip up, it goes in and out of the pocket really, really nicely. That's what you've got sticking out. Get your hand down in there. You can definitely feel it in your pocket, but if you're used to carrying bigger knives like I am, it doesn't really matter all that much. The CJRB/Artisan clip is a really good clip. I do like it a whole lot. The button or the screws on the clip, as you can see, are not recessed. Flip it over this way. But this little G10 insert here kind of makes it feel like they are, because your pant is your pants pocket material is riding on this, and that kind of takes it up and over the screws. So it works really, really nicely. Okay, how is it cut? We have a really, really awesome, aggressive Wharncliffe blade, D2 steel, gorgeous stone wash, by the way. Really, really nice. Flat grind, the edge thickness, the edge isn't the thinnest thing, but it does get pretty good. I think I measured this one about 18 thousandths. That's good to go in my opinion. Come here, box. There we go. All right. Bring this up for just a second. One of those knives that's so slicey, I lost control of the cut. Yeah, this is a really, really nice work knife in a lot of ways. Really, really fantastic. Where did I put the... I had a cutting board out here, but I can't find it, so we're going to use a notebook instead. Tilt down. Let's do our pull through on our new rope. I'm not sure I like this new stuff as much for the review cutting as my old stuff, but whatever. That's pretty nice. Let's go right here. Yeah, Wharncliffes don't typically do very well on push cuts, so not amazing there, but that's kind of be expected. Let's grab our pool noodle. Get off my finger. There we go. All right. Okay. All right, so let's look here. We were not able to get the thinnest slices, and that was because the blade stock is pretty thick. And so as I was cutting through, I could definitely feel that kind of throwing us off a little bit, especially with the flat grind like this. So, you know, not a super amazing detail cutter, but really nice for your utility cuts. I mean, yeah, great utility cutter. The ergos, I didn't talk about this, but the ergos really let you get good, strong utility cuts in. So really, really nice. Let's get back to the table. Alrighty, so let's talk about what I like and what I don't like about the Artisan Cutlery Megahawk. Okay, so first up on my likes, I like the blade shape. This is a very good, very useful Wharncliffe shape. You have a nice tip, good straight edge. This is definitely a very hard-working Wharncliffe, and we'll get back to that. That's going to be a recurring theme for this review. Next thing, the ergos on this knife are absolutely fantastic. I feel like I can get a very, very solid grip here. Very nice. It's one of those neutral, not neutral grips. I said that in the cutting footage, but what I mean by that is, I mean, you kind of have suggestions on where your fingers are supposed to go. It's not, let's find an example of a completely neutral handle. Benchmade bug out, pretty much completely neutral handle. Actually, a completely neutral handle would be like on this Artisan Sirius. But, you know, it's not 100% neutral, but in hand, for all intents and purposes, it's completely neutral. The G10 in here gives you a good amount of grip over this really slick aluminum which is very, very important. I like that a lot. So yeah, the knife is pretty thick. Gosh, me and speaking today, guys. But that just helps it to feel better in the hand. So that's good. Access to the liner, very nice. Always like to see that. Centering is good. Fit and finish is pretty well done all the way around. This really full back spacer fits in really nicely. I like this back spacer. Very nice. Got the lanyard hole in the back spacer. That's cool. The pocket clip works good. I've said before that this clip from Artisan Civivi is a good clip, and it is. And something interesting about this knife is even though you have button screws, they're almost the same level as this G10 insert, which means that kind of cancels them out. So in and out of the pocket, there's no problem at all. So that's really awesome. And the G10, besides being, grippy enough to give you traction, it's also a little bit smooth. So if you have the pocket clip riding on it, it works just fine. The pocket clip itself is reversible. You can move the pocket clip from here to here. You have a filler tab. I keep forgetting that word. I'm an idiot. You have a filler tab there. So that's really, really nice. And yeah, so there you go. You have a tip down carry. Left hand, right hand tip down carry. I don't know, but you have a tip down carry. So if you want to carry tip down, you can do that. So there we go. Next thing, let's go back to the blade. So it is a little thick behind the edge. 22 to 24 thousandths isn't the worst thing, but it is a little bit thicker, and we'll come back to that. But it's a very good working blade. Rather than being a precise thin slicer, this is a cutter. This knife is chunky in pretty much every dimension. It's stout. It is very stout. These liners are not milled out at all. So it's a pretty heavy knife. But that, to me, this knife feels like a very, very good all-purpose work knife. I would absolutely love to take this knife out in the woods, out on the ranch. I could see this being so useful for so many things. That tip is good for utility cuts, even though this knife is a little bit thick behind the edge. Even though I wasn't using this knife for anything super crazy, I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm thinking of right now. Back on the ranch, I'm like, oh gosh, I could do this, and that. And, but this knife, just very good utility cuts. Look at this grip. This is really, really nice for your utility cuts. It's a good working blade, and I appreciate that a lot. In fact, the whole knife itself just feels like an excellent working knife, and so that's really, really cool. Okay, let's go on to what I'm not liking so much. And the first thing we're going to talk about is something that's not a negative or a positive. It sits right there in the middle, and that's the action. So this is running on bearings, and the flipper tab, as you can see, is way lower than the pivot. And so that means that the flip, you can do it, but it's a kind of slow flip. It's not very satisfying. The close is very smooth, though. Closing action is really, really good. But, flipping it out, not the most satisfying. And, I mean, it's very, very easy to fail. If you go at it with full intent, yes, you'll deploy it. But, it's just not the most natural thing or the most satisfying thing. You can. Whoops. Ah, come on, Gideon. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna make myself mad. Doing this under camera is kind of hard. Kind of. You can reverse flick it out with the middle finger, but yeah, so the action's kind of meh. Okay, so what do I dislike? Well, number one, I do wish there was jimping along the back of the blade. You guys know me. I'm a sucker for jimping. Really do wish there was jimping back here. Next thing, the plunge grind is not done very well, and as you can see, there is a sharpening error. I don't know if this came like this from the factory or if this was done by the person who loaned this knife in, but I can definitely tell the plunge grind's not done the absolute best. And next thing, this knife could definitely be a little bit thinner behind the edge. I'm not going to count this as a huge negative because not every knife needs to be slicey. You don't need to be able to skin a grape with every pocket knife. This knife, I would definitely classify as more of a this is definitely more of a work knife than an EDC knife, if you know what I mean. And so the grind isn't, or the thickness behind the edge is not the worst thing. However, the grind, I do think could be a little bit better. Because the thing is it doesn't really, it's a very gradual slope down to the edge instead of a, like, what's the word I'm looking for? How do I want to describe this? You can have a knife that has 24 thousandths behind the edge and have good geometry, like have a good grind. This knife just feels like the grind could have been done better. And so, there is definitely a little bit of a knock in the performance from that perspective. As you could see with the pool noodle test. This knife sliced through the cardboard very well, but when going through the pool noodle, it got hung up quite a bit. And so that is something that you often see, and that is definitely something I think this knife could do better. Other than that, the lock bar is a little bit sharp. I wish they put some jimping or just chamfered the lock bar down because it is a little bit sharp, but, yeah, look at that. This is not necessarily a fidget knife, though, so this is probably going to be something you flip it open, you cut, you close it, and then you're done. So, whatever. Other complaints, T6 screws. I haven't really complained about T6 screws in a lot of reviews lately, just because they're kind of everywhere. Just be careful, but, I guess I could mention that. Other than that, I don't have very many complaints. So let's do my final conclusions. My final conclusions are overwhelmingly positive. I know I didn't really say all that much in this review, both on the positive or the negative side. And to be honest, that's kind of why I like this knife. It's not trying to do anything revolutionary. It's not trying to be fancy. It's not trying to be, I guess it's not trying to live up to any type of hype. It is an older knife, but the thing is it's just a solid work knife. And it's a knife that I actually like quite a bit. The ergonomics are very good. And, despite the grind not being the most precise thing out there, I could definitely see myself enjoying this as a work knife for a long, long time. Just really, really good. Yes, it's big and heavy, which isn't going to be some people's cup of tea. And unless you're actually looking for, a little more of a heavy-duty Wharncliffe, you can probably pass on this. What's the price on this? These come in at $59.24, and I think that's an absolutely fine price. There's also other versions. You can get fancier, upgraded version titanium frame locks for like $225 or something like that. So, you have your options. The review of this knife is going to be coming out probably I'll post this review on a Wednesday, and this one will be next Friday. And I prefer this knife to this one. This is the Artisan Cutlery Apache. So this one is a better slicer if you're looking for something to, do your slicey stuff. It has a taller grind, comes down to a thinner edge. The flat grind is just done a little bit better. But the ergos on this knife are just terrible. And this knife, to me, they're the same price. I would definitely go with this one if you're looking for a straight edge to use as a work knife. Definitely a knife that I can recommend. Might pick one up for myself. I have enjoyed having this knife. Wharncliffes are great for a whole lot of things, they're not the best at slicing. They're not the best at, in fact, they pretty much suck at pushing cuts, but utility cuts, if you need to get to that point, they can slice. They're good rope cutters. There's a lot of things that you can do with a Wharncliffe, and I do absolutely recommend this knife. And that's all I have to say. So, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. If you didn't like it, comment below and tell me why not. And I've been Gideon. I'll see you in the next one. Adios.